Welcome to the Rich Mind Podcast.
That's what I love about hopping on here like this, man. Like I said, just a conversation, figuring out what we want to go, where we want to go with this conversation. But last time when we chatted, you had a great idea for a topic. And do you remember what that was? What was the teaser we put out there for folks on this episode? Do you remember what that was, Greg?
Yeah, so last time we teased it out, we're going to talk about arbitrage as it relates to investing.
So when you say that, maybe the first question I had, even before we hit record today, was like, when did you first learn about that arbitrage? Because to me, I had to learn that on my own. That was another topic that no one ever talked about, arbitrage. So maybe even describe what that means to you as far as what that even is.
Yeah, so the way I see arbitrage is, basically, if you can borrow money at 1%, let's say you borrow at 5% as an example, and then you go out to the marketplace and you find an investment that pays you 12%. So you're basically making that spread of the 7% difference, costs you 5, you're earning 12, you make the 7. That's what arbitrage is to me as it relates to real estate investing or private money lending. That's kind of where I use it. And then where I heard about it, I honestly couldn't pinpoint a source, but it's probably from, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or maybe Robert Helms and the real estate guys. I know, we're both pretty active in that community. So I'm guessing it's from one of those two gentlemen, but that would be my best guess.
Yeah, so I would agree with that. So in my journey of jumping down the financial education piece for myself, as I kept learning, arbitrage was something that was talked about, that I had to wrap my head around it to the point where I just had to comprehend the idea that it's being done all day long, right? Banks, investors, you name it. Anybody in a previous episode or two, we talked about leverage and the importance of leverage. And to me, this is just another form of leverage, meaning it's you can take from something at one valuation or percentage, invest it into something else, an active asset, and then that spread that you make on the back end of it is just a fascinating thing. I actually tried. So the biggest, or one of the examples that I used it for myself as I was learning, is when I was borrowing from my house. I actually put a HELOC on my home, and I was out buying rental properties with that HELOC. So once again, folks, let's maybe just put this right up front. We are not financial advisors. This is all just information. These are just ideas, concepts, things that Greg and I have done personally. We would love to have a discussion with you in the future, right? You want to kind of maybe pinpoint it into your personal your own self, what you're trying to do in your own life. We can have that discussion. But we're not tax advisors. We're not financial advisors. We're none of that thing. So don't take this as advice. But what I did, I learned that, once again, I could borrow against my home, which was at 5%. I think that was the rate at the time. And then I went out through due diligence and found some investment properties that were managed well and performed very well. Maybe that's probably another crucial piece to that, right? You've got to make sure that it's going to be performing, because if it's not performing, then you've got to come up with paying back that leverage. But I was able to then make that spread. So the cost of the capital was 5 from my home. I invested it into an asset that was paying me back. I couldn't tell you exactly what the numbers were sitting here today. This was a few years ago, back 2018, 19, something like that, prior to COVID. But anyways, it was a nice spread, which was fantastic. So that was an example for myself of arbitrage that I would never had even thought about doing something like that, even 10 years earlier, prior to, once again, the discovery of the personal development and the financial education piece that we're talking about here on the podcast.
Yeah, that's a great example. I've done the exact same thing that you did as well with borrowing from a HELOC. Whether it's from your primary, or we can put a HELOC on a rental property. I've done that before in the past.
Have you? See, so still have 2 single families that I probably have some equity built up in them that I could probably do that again. I just haven't looked into that yet. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so you can do it. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. You mentioned banks. I know banks, this is their business model, right? They, when they offer us 2 or 3% in savings, they're not keeping that money on the corner of First and Main Street. They are lending it out to us as a mortgage at 7%. So it's kind of funny that they're using us on both ends. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And it's just the way their business model works. And that's why a lot of real estate investors, they do end up having a piece of their portfolio as being a private money lender or they get into lending for that reason because of the spread and the ease of it. As long as you, like you said, you understand the risks of that back-end investment. It has to be solid, it has to be there, and has to be paying, because if it's not, then you're creating a world of hurt for yourself.
It can go upside down and create a world of hurt. I like how you put that. That's exactly right. So maybe if folks are listening to us today and they're like, private money lending, that's maybe a term or an idea that they're not even familiar with. Maybe help some folks out there understand that that's even a thing, what that is, and either how you've done it or how you know of other folks that have done it as well. Maybe just go into that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm relatively new to private money lending. It's probably been a year or two since I dove into that niche. But yeah, basically what it is, where I started was, if you know any wholesalers or flippers, specifically flippers, they use other people's money, like, we talked about in previous episodes. And I am that other person that they're using my money, right? But it's benefiting me. So as a private money lender, if I have a buddy who is flipping a home and he needs, let's say, $50,000, I can, negotiate with him and say, all right, I'll give you the $50,000 right away, as long as it is collateralized. So I'm the first lien holder of the house, just in case he decides not to pay me. I have the house as collateral that I can foreclose on and take ownership of. And then we just work out the details of, hey, you're going to pay me 12% a year. Here are the terms. Here's the way you pay me. So yeah, everything is negotiable, but I know a lot of flippers are probably right around 12% in that range, 12 to 15%, just depending on their experience, their skill level, how many deals they have going. But yeah, and it's a great way as a private money lender to feel comfortable about your investment because it is collateralized as long as it's a first position lien. And, you're pretty much guaranteed. I don't want to say guaranteed. That's not the right word, but you're lining yourself up.
Yeah, there's no guarantee in the investments, right? But at the same time, if you do your homework, do your due diligence, find the right partner, right? It's seemingly almost guaranteed.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're lining yourself up for a healthy...
Your chances of win are a lot higher, right? Versus just throwing money at a wall and just figuring out what happens.
Exactly. And then, from there, I would say, like you said, vet out the person who you're lending this money to, make sure that they have, the means, the operations, make sure that, look at their past deals, even talk to previous private money lenders that they've dealt with, just to make sure, hey, is this guy Randy? Is he going to pay me back? Is he easy to work with? So again, just doing that due diligence, like you mentioned, on the back end, so you really don't hurt yourself.
So maybe go into that a little bit. We have a friend of ours, I think you've invested with from the standpoint, don't necessarily need to go into details about that per se, but as far as how did you do the due diligence? We met this person or you've met this person. So walk me from there, meaning what did you do to do that due diligence for yourself? So somebody's out there listening to us today and they're like, okay, I have some capital. I would like to potentially invest it with someone that has a track record, but where do I even begin to find out about that track record? What is the best thing, or what did you do for yourself?
Yeah, the first thing is, obviously just simply ask them, how long you've been, it's just having a conversation, right? And then this gentleman that, you're talking about, we're both friends with and everything. So it wasn't like an interview for a private money lending, it was just a conversation of how long you've been in business, what area of the country do you work and what's your team look like? And it was just getting to know him as a friend and as a guy. And then, from there, I see him on social media. I know he runs a coaching program to help others learn his systems and processes. So that's very helpful, having that social proof. And then, honestly, I probably talk to him once a quarter, maybe, just to catch up and just see how he's doing, see how my deals are doing, see what kind of things he's seeing in the marketplace, because he's, very educated. He's boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground, right.
Yeah. So he understands, how this whole game works and everything. So yeah, that's kind of how I vetted him out. And if I wanted to go a little bit further, I could have asked him for his portfolio, even though I kind of knew his portfolio just from speaking with him.
Sure.
But if he was a stranger, I'd probably ask him for 2 or 3 deals, and I'd, look up the houses on Zillow to make sure that they are flipped and they're flipped properly and that kind of thing. But yeah, there's it's just a lot of that, building relationships and having that trust in somebody to, put your money in their bank account, basically.
Which goes into the idea, once again, with the Rich Mind podcast, as far as getting yourself into masterminds, getting yourself into groups, the personal development piece. Had you not been willing to put yourself into rooms, maybe a little bit uncomfortable at first, spending a little money, spending a little time with travel, you would not have met this gentleman, which then allowed you then to get to know him, as you mentioned, like a human, right? Like a person, shaking his hand, getting to know who he is. That was really the beginning process of that. And that's been the same thing with me, right? Anytime you've ever, I've had the opportunity to either potentially partner with other folks, same thing with you and me, Greg. Had we not met, gotten to know you as a person, we would not even be having these conversations today. So I just want to maybe put a point in there, right? The idea of getting into the rooms with folks to get to know people, right? Especially if it's in a niche. It's like you're talking real estate, which is fantastic. There are real estate masterminds everywhere, all over the country. Yeah, highly recommend. Get yourself involved, because that will definitely speed up the process, this due diligence, because that is by far the most important piece. Betting on a house is a house is a house. Meaning, if you put the wrong person doing the work on the same house, right, you're gonna get a completely different outcome versus the right person and the right partner doing the same work on that house. If you're in partnership with that person, you're going to get a completely different outcome, which is exactly what I did when I was looking for the partnership for myself for my rentals as well. I was looking for somebody that could manage it, because I don't want to manage it. I don't want to be the one getting the calls. I don't want to do any of that. So you don't have to. And if you're interested, folks, in learning more about what I've done and how I've done it, feel free to reach out to us. We're always talking about the email of info@richmind.co. Feel free to drop us a line. We'd be more than happy to go into a little bit more detail. But that was my criteria. I wanted to find a partner that had all the systems and processes in place. You talked about that when you were doing your due diligence, finding that right person. And that's so important. Any more thoughts on that as far as how the importance of the partnership versus even just the location or even the physical product of the house itself?
Yeah, no, like you said, the person is vital, right? Because like you said, a house is a house, and, not every deal is going to go, 100% perfect, but knowing that I have that person to rely on and say, all right, if something does go wrong, this guy I'm lending to, he's been there before. He's probably seen this, mistake happen or this market downturn or whatever, and he's going to take care of me as an investor. He's not going to say, oh, too bad, so sad. I'm not going to pay you back your money. He's going to figure out a way, because he wants to keep me happy as an investor, because after this deal, there's going to be another deal. And if he wants me to come back and write that check again, he's going to have to, keep me happy on this deal number one. So he understands, or he or she should understand, the value of building those relationships, because it's not just a transaction. Here's a one-time lending fee and that kind of thing, and I'll never talk to you again. It's, let's build a relationship, let's build a business, because if you have that $50,000, you can keep on rolling it over into many, many projects, as long as that money goes out and comes back, goes out and comes back. So building that relationship is key with that person.
That's maybe another concept we can go into in the future as well. You just mentioned it there briefly about the velocity of your money, right? Mm-hmm. Money in, money out. How quickly can you get it back with friends is kind of what I always say. You send it out and it comes back with friends, and how fast and how often can you get that done? And I would say if you find the right partner on the right projects, it's like as many times as possible. Yes, please. Where can I put that money? And if he's doing a good job, a person I'm thinking of that coming to mind on a bigger scale that folks might be familiar with is like Kenny McElroy. From what I understand, it's like he's got people beating down his door trying to invest with his MC companies, his company, because he just does a fantastic job of returning the investor's capital with friends. And it's like, okay, when you get that money back, where do you want to put it? Well, you want to put it right back with Kenny again, right? That's the whole idea, is send it out and have it come back with friends. And that's just a beautiful thing if you can figure that out. That's kind of what this discussion is about today with the arbitrage piece, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Kenny McElroy obviously is one of the elite real estate investors. So definitely a good name drop there.
Yeah, so we love, I've had the opportunity to meet Kenny a couple times, and he's a fantastic human. Yeah, he's a lot of fun. So pivot a little here as far as maybe a different subject, as far as same thing with the arbitrage, but just in a different way. Many years ago, and I say many, meaning prior to COVID, I was in the business of online arbitrage, if you can even imagine that. So just wanted to kind of bring that up as a potential something for folks to be out there thinking about as well. There are different ways to make money. So let me maybe clarify that a little bit. One thing that I believe, and I think people just get their words mixed up, is they're always talking about going out and making money. And when I think most folks, when they're thinking about that, they're talking about earning money, like going out and earning a paycheck. And I think that's just, if you can just get that mindset shift as well, change that thinking. Making money is like what we're talking about, taking capital, investing capital, getting capital back plus some. That's making money. Earning money is reporting to a job, clocking in, and you do a physical thing to get rewarded. I guess rewarded, poorly rewarded maybe at the end of a week or a month or whatever. To me, that's just two different things. But when you have the skill set of seeing arbitrage opportunities, that's where life can really accelerate quickly. And fortunately, when I first started was 2017. I've always been trying to figure out this whole online thing, right? The online space, there's even courses out there today all over the place, make money online, do this online, do that online. And when I finally found this online arbitrage, and this was with Amazon, it was really, it was a lot of fun. Had to learn a lot of bumps and bruises, just trying to figure some things out. But I was able to get some things going relatively quickly. By the time, it's unfortunate, COVID threw a kink into our operation. We made pivots from there, and I've talked about that on the podcast before. But anyways, I've pivoted out of COVID. I don't necessarily do it anymore, but that was a fun learning experience about how to take capital, invest that capital, and have it come back with friends. It was a beautiful thing. So anyways, any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, so I was going to actually just ask you a little bit more about that, because I'm not really in the e-commerce space, which it sounds like that's what Amazon is.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of use arbitrage in your Amazon business? Like an example or two, maybe.
Yeah, great question. So my background is in food. I mean, I was a retail store manager not a store manager, but I was in retail for 20 plus years. And so my background was always in food. I discovered a way that you could literally go out to local stores, actually use your computer at first, found pricing at local stores, whether it's a Walmart, whether it's Target. We have a local store called Meijer here in the Midwest. Anyways, you can find pricing, find that product at a certain price. So that was my initial investment. And I would send it into Amazon and use their fulfillment by Amazon. So FBA processes their systems. And obviously then they were able to, and they did sell it at a increased price, which then created that arbitrage. I could buy it at one price, sell it on Amazon at another, and that profit was obviously what I was able to make on my business. When I was first getting started, it was interesting that when I would tell folks that when you're buying things on Amazon, I would say most of the time they're coming from people just like me, right? Just mom and pop folks. I was running the business out of the house, and it was just a matter of, became a velocity thing. How quickly could I get product in? Because once you found winners, what I would call winners, meaning particular items, they were called ASINs. Amazon stock inventory number was what an ASIN was. But when you found an ASIN that was a winner, it's like you couldn't get enough. You were all over the place trying to find more because there again, that velocity of money, the more I invested, the more I was able to get into Amazon, the more obviously sales I would get and the more money I would make. Yeah, that was a fun time. Unfortunately, like I said, COVID kind of put the kibosh to it, and it just kind of squashed it, which is unfortunate. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Did that answer your question? Please ask more. It's one of those things, I did it for so long, sometimes it's a little difficult for me to come up with my own mind about it. But yeah, I'd love to answer any other questions you had about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great example of arbitrage, especially, this day and age in Amazon. And I'd imagine it's been 4 or 5 years since you've done that. So I'm imagining the game probably changed a little bit with AI and everything. So any thoughts on that? I know you're not, in the business per se, but you're very aware of AI and Amazon. So
yeah, so it did change. Amazon changes their policies and procedures all the time. Oh, I can't sit here in 2025, actually, when this episode is going to be released in 2025, and tell you exactly how it was working, or it is working today. But yeah, it was definitely changing quarterly, definitely by the year. It would change. It was getting more competitive all the time, depending on what item you found. You're always in search for new winners, new ASINs. There are different things that I could have done that I chose not to, and we can get into detail in that in the future. Maybe that would be something else, folks, if you're interested in learning more about that, right? Once again, send us an email, info@richmind.co. Maybe in the subject line, just you type in Amazon, and I can get back to you on the details of what I did. I can even share with you the group that I was studying with. I actually, before we hopped on this recording today, I was seeing if there was even active. I haven't been on there now for 2 or 3 years, and you're right. Or I mean, it is. It's still active. The group is still active, so I can definitely point you in that direction. But anyways, yeah, it was changing all the time. It was a great low cost business to get into to test theories. to test arbitrage, to test, could I handle inventory? Could I handle setting up processes and systems? Because you're basically literally doing it all by yourself, right? We were talking earlier about investing in other people's processes and systems, right? But I was creating it on the fly, on my own, running it out of the house, out of a spare bedroom at first. And then we actually grew up big enough that I had 2 spaces. I turned my garage into a prep area, and then also still using that spare bedroom. It was a lot of fun. We sold a lot of stuff on Amazon. I was actually watching a show. I forget what the show was, but it was the gentleman had stuff in the back of his car, and it was actually a police officer was questioning, where do you have and why do you have all this stuff? It was AirPods and stuff, electronic things. And he says, I've got a receipt. It's from Walmart and it's legit. And the cop's like, what are you doing with this stuff? And I guarantee you that's what he was doing. He was something similar. It might not have been Amazon, but it was something similar. Buying things at even at retail. You can buy it at retail, move it to a different location. Like I said, Amazon's one I would use, but then you could sell it for a profit. And margins were okay. They weren't fantastic. They weren't 100% margins, but they were enough to obviously accelerate. And I had some staff. They were my family, but I was paying some employees, and it was a great learning experience to learn that process of taking $1 or spending $1 or investing $1, right? And having it coming back with friends, $1.50, $2. Sometimes it was even more than that. Just kind of depended on what the item was.
Yeah, I think that's a good example too of a contrast of private money lending, which is, I don't want to say it's passive because you have to do some work to build a relationship and vet everything out. But once you send the money to that individual, there's not a lot that you really have to do aside from maybe check in once in a while, make sure things are going well. And then the Amazon arbitrage, you created an active business with your family. So it's like 2 ends of the spectrum. So it's just another ideology of, do you want to be active? Do you want to be more passive? There's a lot of different options within arbitrage that we're talking about here today.
So I think one of the big takeaways, and we've said it both on the real estate, private money, even with the Amazon, is that it's the systems that you want to invest in. So I was investing in, because Amazon was taking fees from me every time I made a transaction, but those fees paid for their processes, meaning I didn't have to worry about it getting from their warehouse to XYZ home in XYZ state. I mean, I was selling product all over the country. I was actually selling product all over the world, and I didn't have to worry about that. Amazon did that. So I was investing in their systems and in their processes, and in the return, I was able to get a profit, right, which was that arbitrage, and that's where it became fun. So once again, it was a learning experience. It was my first time being exposed. So I've always been trying to find something, a similar situation like that, and for it to actually work, it was like, holy cow, this is working. Let's go. So I couldn't get enough of it. I was working a lot, but it was a lot of fun. Those 2-3-ish years, especially when I was bringing on the family and we were all working together, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's unfortunate that we put a close to it. Let's just maybe put it that way, shut it down after COVID because it was just a little bit more difficult to do. But yeah, we could always turn it back on if I would need to do a little bit more research, right? Do some more due diligence, see what's actually being used in today's world. But I could definitely turn it back on. My storefront's still there as far as I know. I think it is. I don't think we ever shut it down. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Appreciate you asking about that. That's pretty cool. It's things I haven't thought about in a long, long time. Yeah, no, I'm sure the the listeners in our audience too are, like you said, a little curious maybe or something. So if they do want to send us an email, feel free. Randy's obviously the expert in the Amazon store and space. So Randy will take care of all that information. But yeah, reach out and like Randy said, info@richmind.co. Yeah, absolutely. Send us an email. I'll definitely point you in the right direction as far as the group that I was with. They can definitely help. And if I can even just answer a few questions, I can do that as well. Same thing with the real estate. If people have questions about different private lending opportunities like you've been involved with, we can definitely help with that as well. Right, Greg? Yeah, exactly. That's what we're here for. We're a resource, right? Absolutely. All right, man. I think arbitrage, if anybody has any questions, concerns, anything at all in terms of arbitrage, the idea of getting leverage in your life, figure out how to invest in other people's processes, other people's systems to make a profit. I mean, that's kind of the whole idea with trying to use arbitrage to your advantage, leverage to your advantage. And you can definitely do that. Greg and I are both examples of how we've done it. We might not have done it at scale as you might meet other folks, but at the same time, we've had some success with it as well, which that's kind of the whole idea. You don't want to move backwards, you're going to have some hiccups out there. I definitely have invested some capital in my Amazon business, even that I was bad investments, right? The winners weren't winners all the time, but at the same time, it was small pieces that I lost versus a big chunk. But same thing if you're investing with other people's real estate deals, same thing, right? Things can go sideways. That's definitely part of it. But yeah, mitigating that, getting to know the folks, getting to know the people that are actually in charge, pulling the strings, making the things happen. That's what's most important. So yeah, this has been a fun conversation, Greg. I really appreciate it. Is there anything you want to leave the folks with today as we start to bring this one in for a close?
No, I think you kind of nailed it. Arbitrage is it's a fun animal to play with, but you have to make sure that you understand it very well. And I think next week on our podcast, it's kind of a little bit of a shift. It's not talking about finances and money. It's really talking about physical health and movement. Now that we're in 2025 here, New Year's resolutions, we'll get into all of that stuff, but it's going to be, it's going to be another fun one.
So if you are struggling out there you're already past your New Year's resolutions and you're struggling to figure out, why is it that you can't get that goal, right? That physical goal. This is going to fall into that pillar of health with the Rich Mind podcast. And we're super excited about that. So appreciate you joining us here today. As we've mentioned several times, reach out to us, info@richmind.co. Head over to richmind.co and grab the latest report that we've got. We'll definitely have some different blog posts out there as well. You can get, we're trying to offer as much value as we possibly can to try to help you in this journey, right? Discovering your personal development, discover your financial education, build a business, and just build the life that you truly love. And Greg and I are super excited to help you along in that journey. So go out there, have a fantastic day, and join us back on the next episode. We're going to dive into some health topics. You're going to love it. We look forward to talking to you then. Bye now.
Thank you for joining us today on the Rich Mind podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and share it with someone you know. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Rich Mind podcast on your favorite platform and never miss an episode. Want to dive deeper into transforming your financial mindset? Visit our website to download your free 5-step guide titled From Dead End Job to Entrepreneurial Freedom, designed to help you conquer your fears and start on your entrepreneurial path with confidence. One last thing. Don't ever forget that your mind is the first place where wealth is created. Keep dreaming big, take action, and together, let's build wealth, a legacy, and a life we love. Until next time.